G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave's Talk Stuff, your reliable source of social and political commentary live from inside the manosphere. Today I examine the ideological blind spot where radical feminism meets the algorithmic rise of the digital housewife. Now I analyse for you how subcultures have formed around the commodified companion. Most of these are AIs linked through your phone, and they do create an escape from corporate exhaustion and the drama of a real-world relationship. But they're moving from the phone to your sex doll to domestic workers. Now, I've covered this before, but there's been a radical improvement in AI and we're going to see leaps and bounds. But the real fundamental change is the institutional shift. The feminists have failed to foresee the outcome of voluntarily trading their autonomy to become part of the working class. They commodified marriage. So in response, men created a new industry where men now voluntarily trade their resources for the cheapest, prettiest, and most intelligent companion. All right. Sorry. Before we continue, I'd like to remind you that this channel is sponsored by you, the viewing audience. Empire Valves, that's one word, empirevalves.myshopify.com. Beautiful, artistic productions. High quality coffee cups, latte cups, stainless steel travel mugs, and of course the stainless steel water bottle. I do have other products. I do have posters and more coming. The artwork recently updated with more to come. Here is the latest Empress Sora. Beautiful companion. Wouldn't she make? Beautiful. Meet the $8 billion industry. Each one cheaper than the cost of the average wedding. Heck, it is cheaper than the cost of what men would spend on a date per year, on dating once a week every year. You would spend less on your love doll than you would dating. You don't have to seduce it. You do not have to please it. Though I do recommend you wash it and you buy it new clothes. Also, if you want AI, don't forget to charge the batteries. Now, these are only going to get smarter and more sophisticated. Right now, the vast majority are posing dolls made of latex with a aluminum alloy subframe. Most of their body, however, is just cushion. But it's a multi-billion-dollar industry that is replacing marriage. More dolls were sold last year than people got married. Now, your average doll may only last between a year to 5 years. Some will last longer, others not so much. The more tender, the more beautiful, the less they tend to last as hair pulls out, looks get distorted. But the thing is, AI has undergone a fundamental upgrade. Many AI, you might have probably noticed already, many of your modern AIs. Now, these are considered basic flesh dolls. Now, your high-end companion bots jump dramatically. They are 70 to 140,000, with higher-end models on request only. It's believed that the corporate companion bot market is worth over 100 million and rising. Now, you may say, well, that's the AI. Remember, this is the low end of the market and it's already reached 8 billion. That means average Joe is spending an average of $2,500 a year on a bot instead of dating. That's millions of women who will not get a free meal while doing nothing in return other than showing up and judging you. Whereas the corporate bot, remember, there aren't that many top 100 companies. Lo and behold, it's easy to figure out the top 100 companies. There's 100 of them. And they buy a few domestic bots a year. So it's not the biggest market. Like once upon a time it was like $100 million industry. It's set to grow slightly as they reach down into the top 1,000. But to do that, they have to get there. Elon has to basically is targeting them with manufacturing bots. You'll soon see. Right now, Hyundai wasn't illegal workers. It was illegal robots. Hundreds of them. Over 100 billion in robotic. Sorry. But I should check this one. Yeah. Because I think the robotic market overall is AI powered, smart bots, step by step. No, yeah, basically Hyundai, and many other companies you haven't heard of, they produce a lot of robots. Tesla is a small end player, but is growing. But the value of the market is approaching 100 billion. It grew by 218 billion. Sorry, it grew. Sorry, at the rate of growth, it will grow to 280 billion by the end of the decade. Structural labour shortages continue in many countries. Productivity fails, right? The reason why women were deceived into the workplace was productivity. Even though women are 11% less productive, can lift 25% less, the catastrophic population decline that occurred in the early industrial era, with millions of men leaving Europe for the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, etc., occurred during the early industrial era. So British capitalists, in order to maintain market dominance, put women to work. Women, like lemmings, were all too willing to jump on the bandwagon. They fell for the slogans, and they fell hard. But by second wave feminism, second wave feminism pretty much is like first wave feminism. Right? It was 1960s, lasted till the early 80s. They fought, it was beyond the vote and working. This was about financial rights and legal independence, and a number of cultural issues, aka the birth control pill. The birth control pill kicked off second wave feminism, of course, sponsored by the chemical companies that produce and of course, as you know, some of the early feminists were indeed funded by the CIA. However, they had a blind spot, and by the 1980s, women were burning out. Wages began to stagnate, the nuclear family fracturing, birth rates falling. So governments turned to robotics to increase productivity as people got older and slower. So came third wave feminism. Early 90s was about individuality, diversity, intersectionality. In other words, they took the Equal Rights Amendment and created DEI. Now, by the 2000s, radical splits created fourth wave feminism. Now, the term third wave feminism was popularized by Rebecca Walker in 1992 in her book Becoming the Third Wave, in which she pretty much just financially leveraged feminism to get fame and money, and female-led magazines were all too happy, as well as talk shows like The View and Oprah, Ricky Lake, etc. We're all too happy to give her the time of day. However, radical theory never estimated the men's reaction, right? We're reactionaries, we're counter-revolutionaries, men. They never counted on us beating them or outsmarting them. See, while women are trapped without a relationship to fall back on, they're increasingly dying at an early age of the same stress, many factors. And another reason why the corporations are desperate to get more women in the workplace, fanatics, right? Companies love fanatics. They'll burn themselves out. Men aren't doing that anymore. Men are increasingly working Even though we're more productive, we still are working less hours, and we're not hitting our limits and pushing through anymore and having heart attacks and dying an early death. Men are trading men are also trading marriage for domestic tranquility and living longer and healthier. And our incomes have risen by up to 28% as a result. Men are living high-value lives while women are trapped in the grind of labour and finding now their life expectancy decreasing. See, folks, it wasn't the reason why men died early wasn't a recklessness, it was overwork. And now women are suffering the corporate meat grinder. Now, the broader rejection of institutional autonomy that favoured women, they traded away privilege for wealth, or so they thought. Now, other than a few trad wives, most women have failed. They failed to achieve the required wealth to retire. Most men have too. But most men failed because they had to support women. Most women fail because they cannot control inflation. They created inflation. Double income households in the 80s and 90s, led by radical feminists and their beta cuck partners, bought up as much as they can in the real estate market, forcing prices through the roof. They restricted supply in areas like LA to, they cut the number of high rises. They rent control, and thus places as they got older weren't being replaced because the landlords couldn't afford to replace them. So the government corruption and partnership was all about the corporatization of government, aka fascism, aka German model, the German-Italian model. Jawohl, you will be domesticated and controlled through a series of psychological algorithms designed to... Oh, wait, you turned off the TV. Oh, what do we do now? We'll turn to social media and hit you with even more algorithms. The algorithms that control you. Facebook, Twitter. I know it's not X. I know it's not. No, it's not X. It's still Twitter. It's just Elon has slapped a brand on it, but it's still Twitter. Blue Sky, which is just Twitter light. Light on the moderation and heavy on the cocaine heads who have nothing better to do all day but post a million posts about their Trump arrangement syndrome. But Facebook and, well, the two main ones are going to be Facebook and, three. Facebook, Google, and YouTube. Those three algorithms control what you see, control what you know, and basically then you get to try and find a book, and it's Amazon, and they control what you see and what you get to know. So we are now uncoupling. We are now celebrating our domestic freedom. Women say, oh, who'll do the housework? So we built robots. Right? Women were liberated by the modern oven. Really, you think about it, the modern oven. You could now make a meal under 30 minutes. Do you know how long it used to take to make a meal? All the chopping, peeling. My grandmother, I lived with my grandmother when growing up, and she would spend hours chopping and peeling. And she didn't cut her own meat. She did not, although she did for a while make her own mince. I remember early adding the breadcrumbs as she would turn the grinder. But as ovens got better, no longer waiting to heat up. You know you have to use to wait to heat the oven, right? These new fan force models are hot really quick, and they're temperature controlled, so you're not checking it. You just set the timer and go. So you know it's going to be consistent. You know it's not going to go up and down in temperature. You got your fan forced air fryers now, which are cheaper and faster still. In fact, they're probably one of the cheapest cooking options on the market. Men do tend to favour ready-made meals. Again, putting women out of business. Because women thought, oh, domestic life, cooking and cleaning was so hard. Wait until you've got a job, love. But none of them take their hard jobs. None of them take the really hard jobs. Now, yes, robots created unemployment. There is a 6.5% unemployment. The majority of them are young people, but increasingly it's people over 40. And it's only going to grow. But there are high-tech industries that you cannot have, that men simply cannot. No man, very few men. The people who invented silicon chips had to invent machines because the huge assembly of components to shrink it down to fit in a quarter of an inch took a lot of technology. You need machines to make the machines to make your computers. They did it manually with huge, bulky machines. They had now punch cards and had to be manually sorted. By the early 70s, they were computer sorted. By the 80s, they were on tape. By the 90s, on laser discs. By the 2000s, programmed straight into chips. More and more technology is putting people out of work. Now, we were promised new industries. And there are new green industries. The problem is, so many of them are hooked to robotics that there are very few players. Plus the high cost of entry, particularly in not just the term of education, but time to get that education. And there are only so many solar farms you can build, only so many you can build lots of greenhouses, but but what can you grow in greenhouses that is in short supply? Nothing. Lettuce is oversupplied. Tomatoes, there's an oversupply of tomatoes and many things now. Vine plants, all of them, oversupply. Tulips, oversupply. The Vietnamese were very ahead at the time. They are the largest tulip market in the world. Now, they started back when tulips were expensive. Luxury item. Now, some things too expensive to grow in a hothouse. it's cheaper just to grow it elsewhere, like rice, things in high demand, oranges, too complicated to grow at the moment in hothouses. But ultimately, right, we're going to have to see de-urbanization, that there are too many people in cities unproductive, while there are food shortages primarily in beans. And for now, this is why so many countries overfish, is to make up the shortfall in and so there are industries, right? The digital housewife is a new industry, but it's not going to employ that many more people, okay? Because these dolls will be made by specialist artisans. If I like, if I was to tell you 10 years ago, I think a lot of people wouldn't believe me. And today is the time. You had to invest 10 years ago to build up this industry. Now, China's invested in every industry. And competing right now with China is almost impossible. But it can be done. But it'd take millions of dollars to create. And it would be, right? Just think, these love dolls, $8 billion a year, just out of the majority in China. Next year, it's set to double. In a couple of years, if you're not invested or set up a company, like the only investment you can make in the love doll industry is to buy, is to have a factory. IPO will take a decade to create. And you have to be technologically minded, artistic, a visionary, and there are very few of those who are willing and able to get investment. So for now, it's going to be dominated by China because people aren't willing to invest. People aren't willing to create the necessary cooperation to create these companies. And yes, there are many Chinese industries over the next 10 years that will go broke as productivity shifts because China is increasingly unstable. And yes, the love doll industry will shift to Vietnam, or actually has started to shift to Vietnam, I should say. But for now, Feng Dong, I think it's called Feng Dong Doll. Feng Dong Doll is highly government regulated and restricted, and so it's probably not going to grow as much as other industries. And there are countries where, you know, this is prime industry. But feminism has dismantled the nuclear family and created itself its own destruction. Because feminists, if they don't reproduce and indoctrinate, they are not going to crack. They're not going to crack and grow. Feminism is a shrinking industry. It is predominantly now the fancy of elderly white women, mostly fanatics, who are angry and bitter the promised liberation has not happened. They expected a life of luxury. They expected to be free from domestic shackles. But as a single person, well, men, yep, well, can do the cleaning once a week. Women just can't help themselves. They overwork themselves. They overclean. They put so much effort into a meal there that they just consume with it. They just can't get out of their own way. They're increasingly putting their compassion and passion into everybody but their own people, their own kind, and so they're now even more miserable because they haven't got kids. And feminism, as I said, is not what people think it is. Everything is a predatory behavior to dominate and exterminate the opposition. Every country is pushing feminism on America while banning it in their own. Saudi Arabia and 11 other countries, including Russia and China, are pushing and funding feminism in the West and mass migration. All thanks to Billy Bob Clinton. Because he's a damned idiot. Our own short-sightedness led us to this mess, but we're walking away from this mess because feminism took it over in the 90s thanks to Billy Bob. And electing Billy Bob got us to instability in politics. And unstable politics means you can't have, it's just a problem. You can't get enough good people into politics. You can't deal with the idiots. You cannot save the idiots. So we're watching the world burn. Watch the feminists exterminate themselves. Increasingly so. And we're seeing a rise in a new industry. Now, we're going to see one more new industry in the next 10 years, and that is, of course, artificial children. Feminism has turned a functional society into a commodified prison. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please support the channel. And support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. I appreciate each and every one of you. I'm updating this post. So see you. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. See you in the next video. Bye for now.